I'm going to talk a bit now about writing place. And for this section, I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you, which I'm pressing share now. Let me make sure I've selected it. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? Okay. So I was asked whether I began with the writing or the reading. And of course, I had already drafted, really, I suppose, what you would call a synopsis of the novel in writing it as a long narrative poem. But then I began with the reading and found books which were particularly important to me, and then moved on to, and I was gathering material all the time in my notebook from the books that I read, from the websites I went to, the pictures I saw. I joined something called the Lambsdorff Association. I went to talks that they gave. So really gathering. A student once said to me that a writer is like a recycling centre, and I think that's absolutely right, that we draw material from all sorts of places and pull them together. I then began to do some more. I think that's right. I think it's come back. I then began to do some more research at home and discovered, as I said, about the Long March. And that's when I decided I had to go and see for myself. So first of all, a map and lots of routes on Google Maps, and then journey to Ostrava Airport. It was very small in the Czech Republic. Found the place where I had no idea where the Czech girl came from, but I decided that she came from a farm near this place called Novyichin. And once I'd seen it, it was easier to write about. I found a church which I decided she would have been married in. I found a house which I thought would be like the house that she lived in. And then we drove up in the snow to Poland, to Lambsdorff prisoner of war camp, which was terribly useful because I was able to look in their museum and also just get a feel for the loneliness and barrenness, but somewhere that was full of people, crammed with people. These were the kind of huts that held hundreds and hundreds of men, with this sort of opening out onto the world. And in the museum, there was this little model of the way that people were crammed into these huts on 3 layers of beds. From Lambsdorff, and that's a picture of it at the time, we set off again. I knew that part of the way she would be travelling, crossing railway tracks, and then up into Poland, and these kind of small roads that they would have been walking along, trudging along with everything that they could, all the food that they could carry. Many men have made sledges which they dragged behind them. So it was really, really atmospheric for me to go there during a snowy period. And then we followed Google Maps, and the road, this is the same road which sort of then completely ran out and we found ourselves at the top of a hill, and luckily we're able to reverse back. There are also little things that I saw. I went out, and during the snowstorm I stood out in the snow to feel what it felt like on my face, to hear how quiet snow is, to hear what the crunch of your boots sounds like. There were little things. I spotted this deer, and the deer makes it into the story of the Long March. As they're tramping, they look up and they see this deer. And then we came to a most moving ex-prisoner of war camp called Gorlitz, which they'd allowed the birch forest to grow up through the buildings, and that was really, really atmospheric. And finally, the journey that I took, that Izzy took, where we came through from from where I decided she lived to the quarry that they worked in, and then the 500 miles that they would have had to walk on the long march, took us, and the map is at the beginning of the book. So I'm going to read a little bit from the Long March, just to give you an example of coming out of Thrant. We drag ourselves slowly up a long climb to the summit of a hill and a flat plateau. I think over and over again that the two of us won't make it to the top of the hill, and this is where it will all end. But somehow we do, and at the top we're allowed to sit for 15 minutes to look down on small picturesque villages dotted about the frozen countryside. And then we're on the move again, heading into a massive forest that stretches to the horizon. I remember my promise to Ralph that I'll look after Max. I will keep going as long as he's alive. It may not be long. After the forest, we begin to descend again on a road the guards call the Silberstrasse. We pass big riding stables and a fast-flowing, unfrozen river. Why couldn't this river have been near us when the RAF attacked? Maybe then everyone would have had clean water and Max wouldn't have had dysentery. Every time we shuffle down a hill, it's in the knowledge that in a few hours we'll have to drag our bodies up another. So you can see those were things that I saw. My husband drove this route for me, and I was just taking photographs and scribbling in my notebook everything that I could see. And that was so that was completely about place and the importance of place and why I needed to go and see it and immerse myself in it. And that's why I'm writing my latest novel during lockdown has been so very difficult, that I'm writing now about the Spanish Civil War, and I desperately need to go to Spain. I need to be on the train and feel what the train feels like when you come out of the Alps into the sunshine. I need to be able to look out of the window and see tiny little details, because it's the tiny little details that make it real, that make it really feel real. And though you can get so many of those from books, and I have read some fantastic memoirs, beautifully written memoirs, which give so many details about what someone was seeing, what someone was feeling, what it felt like to be in that place, the heat of the sun, the sound of the sea, the filth in the town called Murcia, where there were very few indoor toilets and people used the street outside their houses as a toilet, and then it was full of refugees. So you know, there are details that I can get from books, but oh boy, do I want to go. I can't wait for all the restrictions to be lifted. I can't wait to get a vaccine and get myself on a train to Spain and add those elements of place which I think make it really come alive.